Once you get someone to walk over that threshold and save a seed, they are part of team seed saving. And it takes a bit of energy because you plant it and it's cleaning it and returning it. But once someone actually makes that commitment, their identity changes. It's all of a sudden like, oh, I'm a seed saver now. And they are part of supporting you in that whole process.
Welcome to the Seed Farmer Podcast, the podcast where I want you to harvest seeds from some of the vegetables and flowers growing in your farm or garden, and then to plant that seed out to grow delicious vegetables and beautiful flowers. If you enjoy the Seed Farmer Podcast and find it to be a good resource that helps you improve your seed work and farming, please support the show at spreadsheet.farm/support podcast. I'm your host, Dan Brisebois, seed grower at Turnasol Cooperative Farm and author of The Seed Farmer, a complete guide to growing, using, and selling your own seeds. Today's minisode is all about seed libraries. But first, some quick news. Mostly, I want to tell you about a few other seed podcasts I've enjoyed recently. There's a new Seed Heads episode in which Steph Benoit talks with Nikki Clark about growing rice in Nova Scotia, and two very recent episodes of Growing for Market had a seed focus. There was one featuring Andrew from Adaptive Seeds. It was a broad conversation about all kinds of seedy topics, from variety selection and trialing and plant breeding. And there was also Michelina from Cicada Seeds who was talking about perennial vegetables. So there's some great seedy episodes out there for you. And now let's get into today's minisode topic. This minisode is a conversation with Rebecca Newburn of the Seed Library Network. We talk about seed libraries, what they are, how they work, and how anyone, yes, anyone, can start one. The reason I brought her on this week is that there is a seed library conference on February 14th focused on helping people get started with seed libraries in their own communities. There's links for the event in the show notes. So that's a conference on February 14th. Perfect for a hot Valentine's date. Enjoy the conversation. Hi, Rebecca. Welcome to the Seed Farmer Podcast.
It is great to be here.
Before we talk, I did want to tell you that Cool Beans is my favorite newsletter name. So I just wanted to tell you that.
Well, that's our international one, and our local one is Let Us Unite. So we have.
I like that too, but I think I like Cool Beans better. Do you want to tell us a bit about yourself and how that led you to seed libraries?
Sure. So I am a science teacher by profession, and I got very interested in permaculture and wanted to know what I could do to kind of contribute to a more sustainable world. And my teacher happened to be the person who started one of the first seed libraries, or started the first seed libraries. And I loved that idea, and I felt like everybody should be stewarding their own seeds, and decided I wanted to create a seed library in our public library and create it as a replicable model. And that's kind of started the journey, and it just grew very quickly. And within 6 months, we were in New York Times, and now there's thousands of them around the planet.
It is really amazing how many there are. Like, we're based in Quebec, and I don't know if there's hundreds, but there's it seems like it from the emails that we get. Can you tell me what a seed library is?
Yeah, the form is variable depending on the community, just like the seeds that we steward are very variable, as are the communities. The basic underlying principle is that it's a publicly available free resource. It's a community resource. It's a commons where people can go and get free seeds and education around how to plant them, how to grow them, and also return them so that we can be self-sustaining. So it's a part of our food access, cultural preservation, as well as resilience.
There's a lot of seed libraries that are actually in libraries.
Yes.
Is that an important thing to talk about, or is that something we shouldn't get into much?
No, I think it's a lovely piece because libraries have always been a public asset. And, when I started this idea of like, wanting to have a seed library, I'm like, well, the public library is such a perfect fit because they store and share documentation and resources. And with the seeds, those also are just like public resources with knowledge and years and years and years and years of history behind them. And so it felt like a nice fit. And I love libraries personally, and just also the fact that they have really good climate. It's a nice storage place for seeds as well. And it reaches a diversity of people. It's not, oh, here's, something that's only visited by this small little group of people, but it reaches a wide spectrum of the community. And I like that aspect as well.
How does the seed library part work with the user, if you want to call it that?
Yeah, it's a borrower or a member.
Yeah.
It depends on the community in which hosts it. They are free, but it's, for example, the seed library that I have in Richmond, California, it's all self-serve. Anybody can come now. We were originally in the public library, but now we're in the rec center because the library is being renovated. So we're reaching a different group of people. But you can just come down, and it's just honor system. You have a QR code to become a member. Most people probably don't even do that, and it's just completely accessible. Other people have a more, maintained collection in terms of access, where maybe it's at a reference desk. Sometimes you need to use actually a public library card. So it really depends on the situation. We have a lot of seed, and we're 100% locally grown. In our case, we don't have any limits. We just encourage people to take what they're planning on growing. But in other cases where maybe they're just getting started and the seed, they don't have as large of a collection, they might say there's only 3 packets per month. And hence, there's more of a process for checking the seeds out through a library card or through a reference desk or something.
I do want to ask you about the 100% locally grown, because that impresses me. But while I have it in my thought, I have seen a lot of seed libraries in libraries using the old card catalogs, which, I mean, it was such a part of my youth to riffle through those card catalogs, and it's something my kids can't do. But I just find it so beautiful to see that. How common is that?
It's quite common. So we recently switched from having a list of seed libraries to a map. And one of the parts we wanted to do was to get the photos of people's seed libraries. And I'm just looking through all the cabinets as I was remaking our website. And a lot of them are. It's funny because we have 3 cabinets at our library. One is a large kind of Japanese tansu cabinet that has vegetables, and then a glass cabinet with, overflow of favas and stuff like that. And then we have another cabinet that's dedicated towards flowers and natives. And then we have a third smaller one that's one of those old card catalogs. And I mean, we thought it was cute at the time, and a lot of people were like, oh, great, let's do it. But I don't quite honestly feel like they're the right size for what we're doing. So, I use baby jars in them because we're 100% in jars. So, but for envelopes, it really kind of is limiting in terms of the size. But they're cute, and I'm glad people are repurposing them, and they definitely fit in terms of organization. So they've got pluses and minuses.
So you mentioned that 100% of your seed at your seed library is local. Does that mean that folks are taking seed out and returning seed, or where is the seed coming from?
Great question. We do have some people that are return seeds. It's not, we're still working on that. That's going to be an ongoing process of how do you do it. I tend to grow a lot of seed at my house. I'm also a middle school science teacher. We have a garden here that's a seed garden, and we have connections with some other seed libraries in the area. For example, the Community Seed Exchange in Sebastopol, California. That's a North Bay in California, San Francisco Bay Area, and then the Going to Seed people in Mendocino County. So we get a lot of, it's all within like a 3-county zone.
And you are in a climate that's good for a lot of seed growing. So I can see that it makes some higher quality level seed easy to get into your system.
And I just want to say one thing about people that are trying to get a seed library maybe established. Once you get someone to walk over that threshold and save a seed, they are part of team seed saving. And it takes a bit of energy because it's, you plant it and it's cleaning it and returning it. But once someone actually makes that commitment, their identity changes. It's all of a sudden like, oh, I'm a seed saver now. And they are part of supporting you in that whole process. And once people have returned something, they often just automatically just like, oh, I have a whole bag for you. And then they just add in new varieties and new species. So it's lovely.
One thing I was looking in the most recent newsletter, and at the bottom there was a little chart. It said "Embrace Diversity," and it was about the different types of seeds that you might find. And so the way it's listed, well, it has to do with how likely they are to be what you actually think is in the pack, and and it's the way I think of that, like sort of as I guess a professional, if I want to call that. But like I think about like self-pollinating, crossers, that kind of stuff. But I love the way it was labeled here, and it said very likely as labeled, and it was like these are self-pollinating, and then possibly diverse, so stuff like fava beans, runner beans, okra, and then very likely diverse, and which is a lot of crops that have many crops in the same family or the same species. But I just thought it was a beautiful way to think about it, as opposed to like kind of like calling it messed up and not messed up, or like, it just I just really like that approach to bringing in that diversity piece. And I don't know if that's a question, but I just wanted to tell you I like it a lot.
Well, thank you. I mean, we had started because I'm a teacher, and when I wanted to create a seed library, I'd worked with the original seed library, the one in Berkeley and Basel. And I said, I love what you're doing. However, people don't really, there needs to be more of a system. And it's like, I don't know anything about seed saving. You folks are seed savers, like help me understand, so that there's a structure involved in the process. So what we first started with was super easy. So the extremely self-pollinating ones, easy, and then difficult, things that you're going to need to hand pollinate or that just outcross a lot and just you don't have a lot of control over, and especially in a small urban area. And, recently we switched to that idea of the likely as labeled, because what I noticed was I'd go to a seed swap and I'd borrow something. I know my first experience of like borrowing sunflowers, and I wanted a Hopi dye sunflower, and I was really excited to find it at a seed swap, planted out a huge swath because I was getting into native, into natural dyes, and there was zero dye property. And if I had seen that chart when I was at a seed swap or at a seed library, I would have known, oh, this probably isn't going to come out as I like. But if I just want a sunflower, that's perfectly fine. And if you are interested in a specific variety or with specific traits, you're going to want to know, if you're borrowing something, whether if it is indeed that species, if it is indeed that variety and has those traits. But a lot of times people aren't, like, for example, I said, when I wanted to get into natural dyeing, I wanted a Hopi dye so I could dye something. And when I borrowed sunflower seeds from a swap and I planted them, it had zero dye property. And while it was pretty, it wasn't what I was looking for. If I had known that it wasn't likely to come out as labeled, I probably would have just purchased that. But if I just wanted a sunflower, which most people do, a lot of people just, when you go to a swap, they're not as interested in a variety. It's a very different thing as a farmer, where you have a client who wants a specific, variety with specific characteristics. But a lot of people just like, I want a squash. I want something to feed my family. And I think people just need the information about how to make those choices. And that's why I like that Embrace Diversity poster, so people can make informed decisions.
Now, the reason I wanted to have you on this minisode is that there's a seed library conference coming up, and it actually sounds like there's a few conferences over the year. Can you tell us about this seed library conference?
Yeah, so we are excited. This is going to be our 12th seed library conference. We decided to do something a little different this time. So the last time we had, I think, 25 speakers, and it was, 4 different tracks. We're going to focus this first conference of the year it's called Getting Started. So if you are planning, if you are dreaming, if you're just getting started and you want to just kind of verify that you've got all your ducks in a row, that this would be the conference for you to attend. Or if you're just a seed lover and you just want to learn more about seed libraries, it's going to be 2 hours on February 14th. And people can access that link from seedlibrarynetwork.org. So seedlibrarynetwork.org. And we're going to have 3 presenters. So we'll have a woman from Squamish Can around, and so it's an environmental group partnering with a public library. We have a master gardener from New York City, and then I'll be wrapping up with just kind of some things that I've seen over the 15 or so years that I've been doing this. And then we're going to have time for a breakout session. So people will have the opportunity to kind of go in smaller groups. We do hope to have a French and a Spanish breakout room as well, and things will be translated with closed captions for people that need that support.
Who should go to this conference?
I would say anyone who's dreaming of having a seed library, or maybe a lot of people are planning and they're just like, they just need that extra kind of boost about getting together. So it could be public librarians. It could be people that just want one in their house. I mean, I have a little one out in my front yard, and it's just kind of nice to know what are some things that you might want to do if you just want to have a little outpost in your space, where to get seeds, how to kind of maybe work on making it more sustainable over time. But usually people just start with getting donated seeds or buying seeds and then kind of increasing their local seed.
Can you just tell us quickly about that little outpost outside of your house? Is that a sharing library?
Yeah. So you've seen the little book libraries. I knew that at the beginning of the pandemic, before it kind of, we had been in lockdown mode, I had a sense of what was coming. And I was like, people are going to really want to grow food, and people are going to be concerned about food. People are going to want to be outside in their gardens. And I just went and bought a little book library and made it into a seed library. And so people could use that. And it just, obviously I continue to have it to this date, but it's a lovely kind of feature where people just walk by and people say, "Oh, what's that?" And I'm like, "Oh, that's sorghum." And I was like, "It's going to be in the seed library next year." So it's kind of a fun thing that people can see what I'm growing in my garden. And I'm like, "Oh, my neighbor's sunflowers next to me." It's like, they're going to be here. You just come back in a few months, and they're going to be dried and they'll be in here for next year. Yeah.
Oh, you just really brought it to a new level what a seed library could be to me. Just that, how it really can be something that's a personal one-person project to a full community project with all different levels of support. So I think that's really great. And I can really see there's a much broader audience for this conference than I imagined.
Oh yeah, I mean, we're a seed libraries. If you go to our map, and you can get that from the seedlibrarynetwork.org, on the map you'll see we have 16 different common locations that people are in, whether it's agricultural centers or nature centers or community centers, to public libraries, as you mentioned, schools. Like I have one at my school here. My sixth graders found my Richmond Grows website and were like, "We want to have a seed library." And I was like, "Go for it." And I didn't tell them it was my website, and they figured out how to do it and put in one at our school. And it's been going for 12 years now. So they're really diverse, as diverse as the seeds we steward. So it's a lovely kind of expression and community expression.
Can you tell us any more about the future conferences this year?
Yes, we haven't really started planning. We just have kind of a general structure of what we want to do. The second one will be mostly around maintaining a seed library. So what are projects that once you get established are going to support you in moving forward? One of the things that people are really wanting to figure out is, how do we get more seed return? So we have some programs called One Seed, One Community, where we pick one variety and we all grow it out, and we walk people through with emails and posts around from seed to seed, and how do you harvest it? What do you need to know about it? And then we'll come together with a celebration at the end around that particular variety. So that's one way. So we'll be talking about that in our maintaining. We'll also be talking about the grow row. How do you encourage people to actually become a steward of a particular variety? And what we notice is that when people often select a variety to steward just for a season, it becomes a love, or they pick something like, "Oh, I want this instead," but then they really become enamored with it. And so we want to kind of encourage that. And then our last one is going to be more around, how do we use seed libraries as a means to become more resilient in terms of climate adaptation, whether it's using locally adapted varieties, such as more of these genetically diverse varieties, such as Going to Seed has, or using standard varieties that have been kind of in this land for a while, to really kind of elevate climate adaptation and community connection.
Oh, that sounds really fantastic. And so, if you send me that or I guess I'll be on the newsletter, but as I hear information, I will share it in the beginning of the podcast, so people can hear about it that way. But also, folks can sign up to your newsletter and stay in touch, and you'll probably advertise it on all the socials too.
Yeah, indeed.
Is there anything that I should ask you?
I nothing in particular. I just think that people just need to love seeds and love community, and kind of come together around something that they feel passionate about. And so, for me, it's been around seeds, as I'm sure you've kind of got that same memo.
I can appreciate that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Rebecca, for coming on and talking to us about seed libraries.
My pleasure. Well, I hope we talk again soon.
And that's another episode of the Seed Farmer Podcast. Thank you, Rebecca, for coming on to get excited about seed libraries. And don't forget, the link to the conference is in the show notes. Thank you to Sophia Sedalton for the theme music. You can hear more of their music at sophiasedalton.com. Thank you to Molly Brisebois for editing this episode, and thank you so much for listening. You can find more seed growing resources on my blog at seedgrowers.farm. While you're there, you can subscribe to my newsletter full of seed growing, crop planning, and farm spreadsheets. You can also find out where to order a copy of my book, The Seed Farmer, a complete guide to growing, using, and selling your own seed. And you can support the podcast at spreadsheet.farm/support-podcast, or follow the link in the show notes. If you haven't already subscribed to this podcast, now's the time. You wouldn't want to miss the next episode. Until then, happy farming.